So let's start the program. Honorable President, Noida Management Association, Shri Surinder Mohan, he is about to join. And in the meanwhile, I have also requested Honorable Vice President, Noida Management Association, Shri Durgesh Gar, who has already joined us. And our eminent speakers of the day, Shri CMA Anil Sharma ji, CMA Amit Kumar ji, and Miss Shefali Sengal ji, CMA Swati Chaturvedi ji, Chairperson, Noida Chapter of Institute of Cost Accountants of India, other eminent personalities who are attending this program and dignitaries who are also attending our program. I welcome all of you. आप सबको मेरा सादर नमस्कार. A very good evening to all of you. To start with this program, I would request Honorable Vice President, Noida Management Association, Sri Durgesh Garg ji, to give the welcome address. Over to you, Durgesh Garg ji.
Yeah. Thanks, Pankaj. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this program organized by Noida Management Association in collaboration with Bharatiya Global MSME Forum and Noida Chapter of Institute of Cost Accountant of India. So, most of you may be knowing, I mean, NMA has been organizing this program in collaboration with, especially with CMA, and last year, I believe, I remember, we did it with CA Association as well, the CA Chapter of Noida as well. So this program has been very successful, and because of the current pandemic, we had to do it online. But I'm sure it will be as useful as it used to be in offline mode. And so this budget, as we know, like the FM said earlier, that it is going to be once in a 100-year budget. And now the budget, this was something which she said in one of her speeches earlier. And now the budget has been presented yesterday, and it is getting all kind of feedback, mostly positive, and it has something for everybody, though not so much for the individuals, taxpayers like us. And Mr. Amit ji would be able to, shed more light on that, especially something from the individual taxpayers. So without wasting any time, I mean, I would request all of you to share your insights on the budget so that we can actually understand what is there behind the budget and how does it impact us as corporates, as businesses, as individuals. So thanks a lot, and look forward to the session today. Thank you very much. And thanks everybody for joining today's session. Over to you, Pankaj.
Yeah, thank you, Durgesh ji. Before we start the program, so I would like to set the contest. So as you all are aware of that, the year 2020 was quite challenging because of the pandemic, not only for India, but for the whole world. Yesterday, Union Finance Minister Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman ji presented the very first budget of the new decade and also the first budget post-COVID-19. Laying a vision for Atmanirbhar Bharat, she said that budget proposals will further strengthen the Sankalp of Station First, doubling farmers' income, strong infrastructure, healthy India, good governance, opportunities for youth, education for all, women empowerment, and inclusive development, among others. The budget proposals for 2021-22 are laid on 6 pillars: health and well-being, physical and financial capital and infrastructure, inclusive development for aspirational India, the invigorating human capital, innovation and R&D, minimum governance and maximum governance. There is substantial increase in investment in health infrastructure. PM Atmanirbhar Swasth Bharat Yojana was announced to develop capacities of primary, secondary, and tertiary care healthcare system to strengthen existing national institutions and create new institutions to cater to detection and cure of new and emerging diseases. Emphasis has been given on vaccines, nutrition, and universal coverage of water supply and Swachh Bharat mission. Production-based incentive schemes have been announced to allow industry to become globally competitive, attract large investments, and boost employment generation. Announcement made to more than 13,000 kilometers of roads and national rail plan for India 2030. Government will work towards raising the share of public transport in urban areas through expansion of metro rail network and augmentation of city bus service. A new corporate structure is underway wherein the majority of directors on the board and key management person would be resident Indians, and with at least 50% of directors being independent directors and a specified percentage of profits being retained as journalism. Under the pillar of inclusive development for aspirational India, the Finance Minister announced to cover agriculture and allied sectors, farmers' welfare and rural India, migrant workers, and labor and financial inclusion. Government has launched the One Nation, One Ration Card scheme, which beneficiary can claim their rations anywhere in the country. It is proposed to reduce the margin money requirement from 25% to 15% and to also include loans for activities allied to agriculture. Moreover, a number of steps were taken to support the MSME sector. The objective of today's session is to facilitate in-depth interaction on various announcements and implication of the Union Budget 2021. Eminent speakers will provide valuable insights and deliberate on the budget proposals and new policy initiatives of the government, including perspectives and expectations from the new budget. To begin with, I will invite CMA Amit Kumar. I would like to share his brief intro. Amit Kumar is the member of Institute of Cost Accountants of India with in-depth exposure of taxation, audit and assurance services. He has been instrumental in various prestigious tax advisory and litigation engagements for some very large and murky clients. He also drafted the exposure draft on journal anti-avoidance rules for and on behalf of ICAI CMA. With almost 3 years stint with PricewaterhouseCoopers, he has intensively worked with several multinationals pertaining to different industries, which has enriched his experience to provide smooth and reliable services matching the global standards. He is an active speaker at various seminars, conferences, and training programs, and has been associated with ICAI as a visiting faculty member. Over to you, CM Amit Kumarji.
Thank you so much, Pankaj. Thank you all for joining us. Pleasure connecting all of you here. Pankaj is taking a little bit time for sharing the PPT. I hope all of you can see it. Is it visible to everybody, PPT?
No, your screen is visible. PPT is not visible.
File names are coming.
Yeah, now your PPT is visible.
Visible?
Yeah.
Now it's. Yes, sir.
Let us start with direct tax proposal highlights, since indirect tax will be taken care by Anil Sharma sir. So we'll start with the direct tax proposal.
Amiji, please put it on the presentation mode.
Is it okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Let us start with the direct tax proposal. We'll take up proposals by various categories. First, we'll start it by personal taxation. As all of us know, no change in tax rates and investment limits in case of individual. Very discouraging for individual taxpayers. Provided tax exemption to cash allowance in lieu of LTC subject to prescribed conditions. I hope all of us are already aware about this exemption, that since lockdown was there, nobody was able to travel anywhere, government has come up with another incentive. Government said that in lieu of LTC, one can avail cash allowance. It was a development way back in the year 2020 in month of October, but people were waiting this exemption to be part of legislation which they have made in the budget 2021. The limit is 34,000 per person. So a family of four around, we can avail around 1,30,000 odd. Exemption from filing ITR for senior citizens, 75 years and above, having only pension and interest income from same bank. Remember, same bank. The integral part for the exemption is that pension and interest should be from a same bank account. Another aspect, paying banks will deduct applicable TDS. Means you need to share all those details with the bank in case if you have another income. In case if you wish to get higher TDS deducted for avoiding any kind of interest later on. Interest accrued on provident fund in excess of 2.5 lakhs is no longer exempt income. Earlier, whatever interest accrual is there in provident fund account, it was not within the ambit, but now it has been taken into ambit of taxation if it is beyond 2.5 lakh. Income from the investment in ULIPs in excess of total premium of 2.5 lakh is now taxable. Consequently, security transaction tax is applicable on maturity or partial withdrawal. Deduction of interest on loan on affordable housing of 1.5 lakh extended by one another year. See, all those deductions, if we go through plainly, does not make much sense unless until we see the proposition mindset of the government behind giving these exemptions. We need to understand the requisition of industry. We need to understand all the allied bylaws if we really wish to get exact understanding of any exemption. And look at this deduction of interest on loan on affordable housing of INR 1.5 lakh extended for another 1 year. Why government is giving so much of thrust on affordable housing? You go and see a very beautiful concept which was launched by the government way back in the year 17, that is called National Infrastructure Pipeline. I hope people will not mind if I get into touch with the practical technicalities of exemption. That is the only way we can get the real meaning of exemption. I was discussing about National Infrastructure Pipeline. Probably majority of us are professionals and we are also into investing in stocks or maybe investing into other opportunities. So we should also be aware about the possible opportunities where we can positively invest and earn some handsome amount. And for getting all those integrities, this discussion is necessary. So let us get back to National Infrastructure Pipeline, which was launched by the government way back in the year 2017, wherein broader guidelines of government intentions have been laid down, wherein all the first areas of government have been clearly depicted with some monetary limits. For example, government has clearly mentioned that they have complete trust on affordable housing and they wish to complete the agenda of affordable housing by the year 2024. For that, an estimated expenditure of around 1.5 trillion is required. So way back in the year 2017, we should have got the idea that government is having absolutely concentration on affordable housing. Hence, this sector is for sure is going to be developed, is going to be another opportunity for investors. Now, looking at this deduction, one can easily see that every year government is facilitating this sector, and minded government will keep facilitating this sector at least till the year 2024. So if you're talking about real estate sector, which is not doing much good, but a particular segment of this real estate sector, which is affordable housing, is absolutely doing really fantastic. In case if anybody is looking forward for any sort of investment, people can easily go for any sort of stock which is related to affordable housing. Going forward, income from notified overseas retirement funds taxable on receipt basis instead of accrual basis for resident individuals who were non-resident earlier. Rules shall further be notified. What is the intent behind bringing this amendment? Some of our senior citizens who were earlier resident of some other jurisdiction, they might have been relocated to India. They have again become the resident to India, but they may be having some sort of investments which are not in India, which are outside India. So they may be earning some income. Now, for sure, there may be some sort of discrepancy so far as taxation laws are concerned. Some taxable point is there. That taxable point may be different with different jurisdictions. Suppose a person is earning some income in US, is now residing in India, having some overseas investments. Those overseas investments are subject to different point of taxation, wherein if we see taxation from the view of India, those point of taxations are different. So how to get a parity between these two? Government is trying to take all those incomes at par. Whatever a person is earning in US should be taxed in India at par with US. So far as point of taxation is concerned, this has nothing to do with the rates. This is something about point of taxation. Now coming back to corporate taxation, which is a big bang for any economy. No change in corporate tax rates since these rates have already been rationalized earlier. So now there is no change in this budget. Now whatever we will be discussing in detail, keeping in view that what was the requisition behind bringing these amendments. Scope of definition of transfer extended to cover transfer under slump sale in relation to capital asset by any means. All type of transfer including exchange, relinquishment, etc. Friends, if you go by the definition of transfer, which is there in section 2, subsection 47 of the Income Tax Act, it is a huge section which covers almost all kind of transfers. But the moment you go through the definition of slump sale, that definition is inclusive, which includes the definition of transfer itself in case of slump sale. So people who are taking benefit of that limited definition. Slump sale means transfer of any enterprise. Now under slump sale, a transfer of enterprise is necessary. What about transfer of a particular asset which is not an enterprise in itself? So there was a scope of litigation. A lot of cases were pending in the courts of law. People were taking undue benefits of this loophole. So government has tried and come up with this amendment so as to patch up this loophole. They said now the slump sale is also subject to the definition of transfer which is there in section 247. meaning thereby any transfer which is in the nature of slump sale shall also be governed by the definition of transfer as per section 247. Means, in case if you are transferring anything under slump sale, even if it is not an enterprise, it will automatically fall upon the definition of transfer, which is again subject to capital gain tax. So we can clearly see that these amendments have some logics, have some requisitions. Define the expression liable to tax. See the beautiful amendment which is brought by this budget. I believe no one is going to be exempted from the purview of taxation having considered this particular aspect of amendment. Define the expression liable to tax in relation to a person means that there is a liability of tax on such person under any law for the time being in force. Please mind it. In any country means whatever you are earning at whatever point of time in whatever jurisdiction shall include a case where subsequent to imposition of tax liability an exemption has been provided. Meaning thereby, whatever income you are earning at whatever point of time in whatever jurisdiction shall be liable to be taxed. I believe they have not left any kind of scope. They have covered everything properly. Another, tax incentives, benefits, the relaxation given for the investment in the units of IFSC. You can clearly see IFSC. You know what is IFSC? Industrial Financial Services Centers. This is basically a global concept, which was not that much prevalent in India, but now since there is requirement of big ticket size investments, which is generally being done by IFSCs at global level. So we are giving some benefits to these IFSCs so as to ensure their presence in India for meeting out the capital outlay budgets. Tax incentives, benefit relaxation given for the investment in units in IFSC means if you are investing in the units of IFSC, certainly you will be eligible for the tax exemption. Ease of business for sovereign wealth funds. Can you see one thing in all these broader amendments? One thing is for sure. The intent of the government is to invite global funds. For the infrastructure development in India. Probably you remember the term which I have just used, the National Infrastructure Pipeline, which has been tabled by this government way back in the year 2017. Can you see somewhere, somehow, majority of the amendments are touching up the broader vision of this National Infrastructure Pipeline? It is clearly visible out there. My intent behind sharing and telling you this connection of National Infrastructure Pipeline with this amendment is that the amendments in itself are not automatic. One who is there in the financial market, one who is a finance professional out there should have some sort of strong connect with these kind of developments so that we can easily guess the flow of market, the flow of interest of investors for adequately suggesting on some professional aspect. Depreciation on goodwill shall not be allowed. Consequently, excluded goodwill of a business or profession from the purview of block of assets. So what government have done, they're saying that we won't give you depreciation on goodwill. So far as income tax is concerned, the depreciation provision is concerned, one thing is very clear. It says depreciation is mandatory to claim. Depreciation is mandatory to claim. Means if you have any asset in your block, then depreciation is mandatory to claim. Now, once government is saying that depreciation on goodwill is not allowed, then this will automatically be out of the purview of asset. Since if it is an asset, depreciation should have been allowed. Right? So in case depreciation is not allowed, it is out of the purview of asset. No tax audits required if digital transactions are 95% or more, instead of 5 CR. Now this limit has been increased to 10 CR. Earlier it was 5 CR. And this is a good move by the government, I believe. Presumptive taxation under scheme under 44 ADA is not available to an LLP engaged in profession. Now, why presumptive taxation is not available for LLP? Since LLP is subject to audit, and whatever organization is there which is subject to audit is not eligible for presumptive taxation benefit. The government has made it clear in writing. Now, this is another aspect we need to focus upon, and we need to communicate it to all of our clients, all our business connects, that late deposit of employers' contribution of labor welfare, etc., shall be disallowed. Earlier, these expenditures were allowed as on paid basis. Means in whatever year you will be paying, you would have got this exemption, you would have got this deduction. But now, government has made it very clear that there is no compromise so far as these kind of contributions are concerned. Once there is obligation to deposit it on time, otherwise there will be no sort of exemption to any corporate or any other payer. Look at this: reconstruction or splitting up of public sector company into separate companies shall be deemed to be a demerger, subject to certain conditions. Look at this. I could have clearly seen the intent of government in this budget. Government was clearly focusing on privatization, policy to divest, policy to selling of the shares, the policy for not owing the shareholding. This is absolutely in line with this policy. Reconstruction or splitting up of public sector company into separate companies shall be deemed to be demerger. See, in case if there is a company and you are selling, or maybe you are parting with some sort of assets in the form of demerger, there could have been some sort of tax implications, but government has clearly said that this particular transaction wherein government is reconstructing a public sector company by way of creating a new company, then this will amount to demerger. In such a scenario, the share which would have been transferred from the principal company to the resultant company are not taxable now. In case if there is a principal company transferring shares to a resulting company and happens to be PSU, in such a scenario, no tax incidence is there on shareholders. So ultimately, government is the only shareholder of these sort of companies. The government does not want to have arrangement like keeping money in one pocket, taking it out and then putting it in another pocket. Tax neutral conversion of urban cooperative bank into banking company. Clearly, many of us are aware about recent RBI guidelines. In October 2020, RBI has come up with a circular, that is a master circular, which is clearly indicating that RBI is going to tighten the guidelines. Perhaps they have done it. They said now onwards, the housing finance companies, which were altogether different categories of NBFCs, shall again be governed by the RBI regulations only. In a similar line, on the similar line, government is saying whatever urban cooperative banks are there, we'll convert all those urban cooperative banks into a banking company, so that RBI can have full control on these urban cooperative banks. Now, zero coupon bonds can be issued by the infrastructure debt funds. Please again look at this and recall the broader policy of government, which is National Infrastructure Pipeline. The broader thrust of the government is spending on the infrastructure sector, and government is doing every possible thing to accomplish this task. They have come up with another amendment for arranging infrastructure spending, that is zero coupon bonds now can be issued by the infrastructure debt fund. To boost real estate sector, Section 43CA shall be triggered only if the stamp value more than 120% of consideration on transfer of residential unit subject to certain conditions. Means, if you have a transaction of transfer of any house property and whatever value you have declared is more than 120% of the stamp value, having the variation of 120%, then this section will be triggered. So they have given you a scope of 20%. Earlier, this scope was 10% only. So you can easily connect this with that housing sector, affordable housing sector. They are specifically giving some relaxation to transfer of residential units only. This is not meant for any commercial unit. This is only meant for residential units. Now, where in case partner receives any money or other asset at the time of dissolution or reconstitution of the specified entity, the value of that money or the fair market value of other asset on the date of such receipt shall be deemed to be the full value of consideration for determining capital gain. Means the date on which you will receive this consideration shall be assumed as the taxable date, taxable incident. You don't need to wait till 31st of March. That date itself shall be governed as point of taxation. Rationalization of provisions of equalization levy. This provision of equalization levy was brought in way back in the year 2016 by the department. This provision was brought into the legislature after so much of the litigation. The litigations were on the part of foreign entities which were not having any physical existence into India. Perhaps they were having their altogether setups outside India. They were rendering all the services online in India. They were getting majority of the remittances from India. And despite of having earned this income in India, They were not liable to tax because of not having any fees. The government has very clearly said that in case if any kind of service provider is there, online service provider, which is providing advertisement services here in India and getting a remittance from India, shall be liable for the equalization levy. Now, what is this equalization levy? Government said to the resident who is making payment from here to overseas that you need to pay 6% tax on this particular remittance. So ultimately, this foreign entity has come to the net of Indian taxation by imposing equalization levy. Advanced tax liability on dividend will arise only after payment declaration of dividend subject to DTA benefit. That is a very common amendment which was much expected. This amendment is basically having two limbs. One is the taxable incidence. Taxable incidence will arise only after payment or declaration of dividend. Another aspect is subject to DTA benefits. The DTA says that dividend income is not taxable. So obviously there won't be any sort of tax. If dividend DTA says dividend shall be taxable subject to DTAs of 3% or maybe 5%, then that rate will prevail. Please, notified affordable renting housing project and startup benefits extended for another 1 year. Now, please look at this. Have some concentration of this notified affordable renting housing project. The government has altogether a different business plan. Government is of the view that keeping in mind this pandemic, which government has, every one of us has recently faced COVID-19, keeping in mind this sort of pandemic, keeping in mind migrant laborers, keeping in mind students who are studying outside their states, government is thinking that it is not feasible for everybody to own a house. And having said that, having this thought of school, government has come up with a policy that let us start with affordable renting housing projects. Instead of getting every person a home, let us have some sort of renting arrangement also. This renting arrangement was earlier there, but only with the private sector. But now government is saying that we also wish to take up this affordable renting housing project, since majority of the population is facing this problem. And majorly after this COVID issue, migrant workers are there. A person who has transferable job does not want to own any house. So in that scenario, for those kind of people, for those segment of population, government has come up with this particular policy, affordable renting housing project. I'm telling you, if you go by the policies of various housing boards, if you go by, more particularly, I give an example of HUDCO. You go to HUDCO website, they have started working on this affordable renting housing project. Now they are going and having their mutual agreements with various state governments, wherein state governments are offering lands to them for constructing building thereof, which again will be utilized for affordable renting housing projects meant specifically for students, migrant workers, etc. So in case if you come across with IPO of any company which is there in the business of affordable renting housing project, I would suggest please do invest in that. It has got very bright future since it is also a part of National Infrastructure Pipeline project. It is going to have at least 10 years impact on the economy. Adjustment in book profits under MAT of past years on account of additional income. Before quoting with this amendment, I would like to draw your attention on one recent amendment which was brought in by last year budget. Perhaps accounting standards have done it way before, that you need to always reinstate your income with the respective years. If there is any particular income in relation to previous years, you need to reinstate that income with respect to that year only. Now, with the help of this amendment, government has come up to make MAT at par with earlier provisions. They are saying, suppose in case if you have any sort of additional income, any sort of deviation from the income which is there on account of earlier years, you need to adjust your MAT for that year only. It should not be allowed to be adjusted in current year. Perhaps reinstatement should be done with respective year. Exclusion of income expenditure in relation to dividend, interest, royalty, FTS of a foreign entity having lesser rate as per DTA while computing MAT. As I already quoted, the DTA has always a dominance. DTAs are always prevailing over domestic law. So whatever is there in DTA shall again prevail. If DTA says the rate of dividend, royalty, FTS is lesser in DTA, we need to forget about income expenditure as per domestic laws. We need to go for the DTAs, even for the purpose of MAT. Now we have got some changes related to tax filings as well. To further ease filing of returns, details of capital gains from listed securities, dividend income, and interest from banks, post office will also be pre-filled. Majority of these things are again pre-filled now. These are already pre-filled, perhaps. Extension of due date for filing of return income in some cases. Perhaps this first phase is not that much useful for us. The second aspect, second limb is more useful. Reducing time to file belated return. Please be aware. Now government has reduced the time to file belated return and to revise the original return from 31st December instead of 31st March. Please, they have reduced 3 months. Earlier it was 31st of March. Now they have made it 31st of December. So please have communication with your clients. Do update them that this date now has been shortened by 3 months. This is now 31st of December instead of 31st of March. In case if any defective return is there, that is again to be rectified till 31st of December only. Charitable institutes. I believe many of us are having some sort of connect with the charitable institutes. There are some amendments which are in regard to these charitable institutes. Charitable educational institutes and hospitals exemption limit increased from rupees 1 crore to 5 crore. That is very common, general. Double deduction not allowed towards donation with specific direction in case of charitable institute. Now such corpus should be invested, deposited in prescribed form or more. Please do concentrate on this particular amendment. Whatever charitable institutions were there, the regulation was that they need to expend 85% of their total receipts towards the mandate for which the exemption was given under income tax. Suppose an educational institution was there, which was in receipt of around say 10 CR for a particular financial year, they were under obligation to spend at least 8.5 CR for the purpose of education only. Now, another aspect, these educational institutions, they usually get donations as well. So what they were doing, that whatever donations they were getting, they were spending out of it, and they were accounting for those corpuses for meeting out the criteria of 85%. See, we have two different channels of spending. One is from the receipts of regular business of education. Another is corpus, which we get as grants. Our mandate is to spend at least 80% of our receipts. What receipts? Which we are getting in regular course of business. But what educational institutions or other entities were doing, whatever corpuses we were getting as donations, we were spending those corpuses, and we were telling government that we are meeting out 85% of the criteria for maintaining the exemption in income tax. Now, government has come up to patch this loophole. Government said, whatever you are spending, let us keep a separate account of it. This 85% should be from your routine business. Those corpuses which are there by virtue of donations should not be utilized for spending this 85% limit. So probably now whatever clients are there with you, which are there as charitable institutions, they need to keep two separate records. One is with routine income, against which they need to spend 85%. And another book meant only for the purpose of corpuses which they are receiving as donations. If you are not maintaining these two books with very sharp differences, possibilities are there that your client will be in trouble, will be facing some sort of litigation from department. So please do advise your clients to maintain sharp differences between routine line of business and corpuses. We have got some amendment with respect to withholding tax as well. Beneficial rate as per DTA shall be applicable for foreign institutional investors. Exemption of deduction of tax at source, payment of dividend. Since we are already running with short of time, so we'll try to wind it up very shortly. I won't be able to explain it in much detail. We shall be highly obliged to have another webinar so that we can get into more details of these things. If a particular entity in whose hand dividend is exempt, then if any company which is paying dividend to that entity is not liable to deduct TDS on that dividend. Please, this is the most important amendment. TDS to be deducted by buyer on purchase of goods. If turnover of 10 CR and on goods purchase exceeding 50 lakh in the previous year. This is the most important amendment. Now TDS is applicable on purchase of goods as well. If you are satisfying these criteria, mind it. Tax litigation. Majority of the changes are there. We were discussing a lot about GST audits. We were discussing now there is no lot of GST audit. Another avenue of the professional has been lost. Look at these changes, then you'll realize that this is not the only area where a professional has been completely outlined. These are certain other areas. Reassessment time limit reduced to 3 years from existing 6 years. In case of serious tax evasions where evasion evidence is INR 50 lakh or more than reopening within 10 years. Please do tell me, my friends, is there any reopening of assessment where an income tax officer will ever say that there is no concealment of income? Hence, this limit is 3 years instead of 6 years. Perhaps they do reopen the assessment if they doubt there is concealment of income. If there is concealment of income on record, so far as department is concerned, that limit automatically becomes 10 years. So that 3 years is of no use here. Now there will be provision for the attachment of property in case of fake invoices. We have seen so many these cases in GST regime. Anil Sharma sir would be the competent person to apprise about these things in detail. Perhaps provision has been brought in income tax as well for attaching the property in case of fake invoicing. Settlement commission shall be discontinued. So whosoever is your client there who was looking forward for one-time settlement with the income tax department has lost this opportunity. Now there won't be any sort of settlement commission anymore. Whatever settlements are going on shall be completed by the interim board only. Introduction of DRC for anyone whose income less than rupees 50 lakh and disputed income is less than 10 lakh. Please look at this amendment. Most discouraging thing for a professional, for any foreign entity, authority for advance ruling have been abolished. Now there won't be any sort of advance ruling authority. Earlier, foreign investors were having some sort of confidence when they were coming to India, they were applying for advance rulings, and in advance, they were very much sure that this is going to be the tax incidence on our business. Now, government has abolished this advance ruling. Perhaps they have replaced this advance ruling with board of advance ruling. And look at the beauty, this board of advance ruling has been constituted by the government with the membership of CCIT and above. Members of this board shall be from the Department of Revenue. How can you expect anti-revenue judgment in such a scenario wherein all the sitting members are from department? It will always be pro-department only. Time to issue notice under section 143(2) reduced by 3 months. 143(1) by 3 months. Notice under section 142(1), which was earlier could have been issued by the assessing officer only, now can be issued by the authority, prescribed authority under faceless. Now, since income tax department has become totally faceless, now whatever designated authority is that, they can also issue notice under section 141. Faceless IT-80. Friends, IT-80, Income Tax Appellate Tribunal, happens to be the last fact-finding authority. Beyond this, High Court happens, where there is no question of facts. There is always discussion on point of law. Look at the thing, they have completely abolished physical IT-80. They have gone for faceless IT-80. Friends, this is the most important forum for any professional for presenting, for tabling facts of the case. And such crucial institutions have become faceless. Whatever personal hearing will be there, that personal hearing will be through video conferencing only. No physical presence will be there. So at least, in my view, at least IT-80 should have been done physically, since this is the last fact-finding authority, so there should not be any sort of scope for the risk of assessing. But as again quoted by the government, this is the era of video conferencing, virtual meetings. we again welcome this amendment and we'll prepare ourselves for dealing with the ITAT via video conferencing. Thank you so much, friends. This is all about
Thank you.
so much, friends. This is all about the amendments which were brought in by recent budget on direct taxes. So I could have been more technical and got into more details, but keeping in mind the timelines which were given to us, we would like to meet again on these kind of platforms. Over to you, Pankaj.
Yeah, thank you, Amitji, for sharing valuable insights on the subject. And we understand that your schedule is very busy and you will not be able till the end of this program. Now we will take the privilege and pleasure to present you certificate of recognition.
Thank you, sir.
So this is a certificate of recognition from our side.
I'm honored and humbled, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amitji. Thank you.
Thank you, Maji. So nice of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So now I would invite our next speaker, CMA Anish Sharma ji. Anish Sharma ji is the member of Institute of Cost Accountants of India with over 15 years of corporate experience in various areas of accounting, commercial, audit, costing, ERP setup, and MIS project accounting and systems in large manufacturing organizations such as GAIL, Gujarat Ambuja Cements Limited, JCBL Limited. He is currently in practice and has provided services as consultant to various industries such as textile, pharmaceuticals, steel, cements, engineering, and automobiles. He also takes part as panelist with national TV channels, All India Radio, on GST and other contemporary issues. Over to you, CM Anish Sharma ji.
Thank you, Pankaj. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Fine, sir. So I take this liberty and opportunity to interact with you people without any PPT today, and will try to make my expression as clear as possible so that we can understand the basic things that the budget has brought to us yesterday. And there are a lot of things to be understood through these budgets and amendments done in indirect taxes, as Amit has beautifully elaborated and covered each and every amendment in income tax. So the job to discuss with you the indirect taxes. Before going to indirect taxes amendments as done through this budget, Union Budget 2021, I just want to elaborate about the overall budget presented by the Honorable Finance Minister yesterday. So in her first and opening lines, he mentioned that during COVID-19, because in last 9 months, whatever we have faced, it was a very, bad experience through this Corona, but Corona has given us very new things to learn. So during this Corona, through their 5 stimulus packages, Government of India released approximately 27.1 lakh crore rupees to the economy, so that we can survive, and which was approximately 13% to our GDP. So 27.1 lakh crore government inserted in the economy during these 9 months to review the economy. And naturally, it's supposed to be happen that it will impact our budget, and it has impacted our budget. And having everything revised, and the revised expenditure of the Government of India for 2021 stands at 34.50 lakh rupees. So overall deficit, finance deficit to the Government of India is 9.5% of GDP, which is otherwise supposed to be around 4% or 5% or below 4 or 5%. This year we have a deficit, finance deficit to 9.5% of GDP, and still government needs 80,000 crore for rest of the 2 months or 3 months of this financial year, and government is borrowing these things from open market. So based on this 2021 budget, where we were having total expenditure to the tune of 30.50 lakh crore rupees, government has estimated the expenditure for 2021-22 to 34.83 lakh crores. So keeping 5.54 lakh for capital expenditures, because we all know that capital expenditure is the thing which give a lot of opportunities for MSMEs, for employment, and also boost up to the economy. So for the next year, means 21-22, government is keeping higher side and it has increased their capital expenditure to by 34%. And also trying to reduce the financial deficit from 9.5% to 6.8%. And by 2025, government is targeting to reach back the original target of the government, that is below 4%. So let's hope that this budget, the way it has been presented and the provisions made for capital expenditure, for transportation, for automobile, or for infrastructure, for power sector, for insurance sector, the target mentioned by the government, that is 6.8% GDP financial deficit, can be achieved. So as mentioned by Honorable Finance Minister, that this budget of Government of India will be placed at 6 pillars, which includes health and well-being, physical and financial capital and infrastructure, inclusive development for inspirational India, reinvigorating human capital, innovation and R&D. This is, I think, a beauty of this budget, because last year also government mentioned about R&D to be done in within the country. So they are putting efforts for R&D, which was missing earlier. So minimum government and maximum governance. So these type of things has been narrated in the budget, and with this spirit, this budget came, and we are really hopeful that after this Corona period of 9 months depression in the economy and otherwise, will bring cheer to the economy as well to the citizens of the country. So another new thing in the budget is scrapping policy. So government has introduced through this budget a scrapping policy for old vehicles. So for personal vehicles, the time limit is 20 years, and for commercial vehicles, the time limit will be 15 years. And after this period of 15 years or 20 years, the vehicle will be scrapped. And this scrap will be input for the scrap industry or the steel industry in the country, which may help for a cheaper raw material in the country. In textile sector also, friends, government has planned 7 textile parks to keep or to make our textile industry competitive in the world market, because we are facing tough competition from China as well as from Bangladesh. So with the idea to make our textile industry more competent, these 7 textile park has been proposed in this budget, and these 7 park will be established within the 3-year period from now. Similarly, as I mentioned earlier, that capital budget has been increased by 34.5%. This will definitely boost the economy after the depression we faced last year. Similarly, friends, in railway sector, government has planned to spend 1.10 lakh crore. 1,10,10,000 crore का प्रावधान है railway के लिए, and out of that 1.07 lakh will be on capital items only. So it's a big boost for the infrastructure. Similarly, in power sector, friends, in power sector, government has increased its installed capacity, has planned to increase its installed capacity by 139 gigawatts. Definitely, it will help to boost this power sector also, and having an estimate budget for this to the tune of 3.05 lakh crore, which is again a huge amount. Similarly, friends, in Company Act or the Companies Act 2013, the definition of small companies has been changed, and the criteria of turnover and this authorized capital has been changed. From authorized capital from 50 has been enhanced to 2 crore rupees, and turnover from 2 crore to 20 crore rupees. So by doing so, by changing the definition of small companies and enhancing the authorized capital to 2 crore and turnover to 20 crore, will ease of doing business will be there, and the companies can have a less compliance cost and openly will do the business. And similarly, for a 1-person company also, they have given a choice. They can shift over to any form of companies. So a proprietor can shift to one-person company, or one-person company can shift to other formats of the business as per the law under Companies Act. For school or education point of view, friends, government has planned to upgrade the 15,000 school in the country as per the new education policy, and also under PPPD mode will establish 100 scenic schools. So this will also boost the education sector. So this was the overall budget with other so many schemes the government has brought into. And long-term planning on long-term basis, we will see that a lot of improvement in the economy, so that what I told you, that by having 9.5 financial deficit with 7.7 minus economic development contraction in the economy, government trying to make it positive. So this type of proposals are there, and we'll see, and we are confident that definitely with these type of proposals, the economy of the country will boost. And further coming to my main topic of indirect taxes. So in indirect taxes, as we all know that the economy, even before Corona, we noticed that economy was not doing well, and there was a negative trend in the economy. So to make the things possible and in the better structured way, government has, and otherwise the basic concept and the basic spirit of the government is to help the domestic industry, maybe MSMEs or otherwise. So accordingly, the changes have been made in the Customs Act first. In custom, as mentioned by Honorable Finance Minister, that they are in the process of overhauling the custom duty structure. So through this process, they identify and eliminate 80 outdated exemptions in Custom Act, and also now taken into hand 400 another such exemptions which are outdated now and not useful for today's market scenario. So they will review it and will abolish these 400 more such exemptions given earlier. And the target has also been fixed that it will be done by 1st October 2021, and by 31st March next, the new customs duty restructuring will be completed. Apart from that, with the passage of time and otherwise also our mobile and electronic industry has matured enough, and today there was a time when we were importing the goods of electronic and mobile, and today we are manufacturing in the country itself. So now we are exporting also. So to do that, considering this development in the electronic and mobile industry, government has eliminated the zero rate of custom duty and have imposed duty of 2.5% on imported goods, because now such goods are being manufactured in India itself. So they are avoiding to get it imported from outside India. In iron and steel industry, they have given a good help to this iron and steel industry, and to protecting this industry, especially in the case of non-alloy, alloy or stainless steel. They have reduced the custom duty for import of this scrap or these items, because in the domestic market the steel prices has increased like anything. So to help this industry, the custom duty has been reduced on the import of the such items. So definitely it will help the non-alloy or alloy or stainless industry, and also recycle industry, especially in the MSMEs cases. Similarly, scrap steel duty has been exempted. So there will be no duty on import of scrap till 31st March 2022. And further, in the case of copper steel, this scrap also, they have reduced the duty from 5% to 2.5. So basic idea is that they are helping iron and steel industry, especially the MSME sector, because steel prices were gone up in the country, and to help them, this steps has been taken or proposed in the budget. Similarly, in case of textile industry, because I told you that textile industry is having a tough competition from Bangladesh or China and other countries of the world. So they have reduced the basic custom duty on some of the items in textiles, especially in the case of nylon chips, nylon fiber, and yarn to 5%, so that the textile can be a competitive in the world market. Again, because there are number of MSMEs, so it will be a great help for the such type of units which are doing business in these and importing such items. Friends, in case of chemical industry, naphtha, that custom duty has been reduced to 2.5, which is again a helpful for the MSME sector as well as the manufacturing sector, where such naphtha type of items are being used. In case of gold and silver or artificial gem, also to uniformity, to bring the uniformity. If you remember, during COVID-19 period, July 2019, the gold, this custom duty rate was increased to 12.5% from 10%. Now it has again been reduced to 10%. Similarly, in case of renewable energy, solar energy, to promote this industry further in the domestic market, the imported parts of solar energy, the custom duty has been increased from 5% to 20%, so that the domestic market can perform better and can have a better results. Similarly, in capital equipments and auto parts industry, the custom duty on some of the items has been reduced to 7.5%, and to some of the parts it is reduced to 2.5%, just to protect our own industry or give a benefit to the domestic market. Similarly, in MSME products also, there are so many MSME products which are being used by MSMEs only. For example, steel screws. In case of steel screws, duty has been increased from 10% to 15%, with the idea that the domestic market MSME which are producing these items of steel screw, they can perform better and they don't have a cheaper screw items from China or other countries. So these type of steps have been taken in custom. Similarly, in case of agriculture products also, in case of cotton, to protect the interests of local farmers or Indian farmers, the custom duty has been imposed on cotton, import of cotton, to 10%. Earlier it was nil. Similarly, on raw silk and silk yarn, the custom duty has been increased from 10% to 15% to protect the interest of Indian farmers, so that people should not import from outside India, rather should buy the things from local market. So apart from that, the government has identified some of the products like petrol, diesel, gold, and other. There is a list annexed to the finance bill, where agriculture infrastructure and development has been introduced. So in some of it ranging from 5% to 35 or 40%. And these are the selective items. And if you import such items, and also because the basic spirit is to protect the local market or the local products, agriculture infrastructure and development has been introduced. So these were the basic things. Apart from this, there are procedural changes which will be taken care by the users on day-to-day basis. But straightway, these are the items which give the direct benefit to the industry, especially to the MSME sector. And the units those are dealing with such products can plan their production or the financial budget for next year. Now coming to GST. We know that GST, since it is introduced in the country, we are seeing a lot of changes every day. And as of now, we have received as good as more than 1,000 amendments in GST so far, almost one amendment daily. So it has created a lot of confusion among the mind of the stakeholders. But still, I still feel that it is not mature to the level that it is settled down right now. On time to come, definitely we'll see more changes. And the changes brought to GST in CGST, IGST through this budget are mainly first, Madam Sitaraman mentioned that they have introduced nil return through SMS to give a ease of doing business. Then they have brought into the quarterly return and monthly payment for small taxpayers having turnover less than 5 crore with effect from 1st January to 2021. Then electronic invoice system has also been introduced for the entities having turnover up to 100 crore. Then pre-filled editable GST return, yes, it is working now. So this way they try to make it confident, that they make a confidence level in the mind of the stakeholder that now GST is getting settled. So they have also enhanced the capacity of GST portal so that more number of assessee can file their return at the same time. This has happened earlier. Earlier, if you have noticed that there happens to be a time when 1.5 lakh assessees uploading their return and system give you a message that please wait. Now it is enhanced to 3 lakh people. So in last 4 months also, we have noticed the increase in GST collection, and the collection for last 4 months has crossed the figure of 1 lakh crore, which is really remarkable. But here my point is that this happens also because due to Corona and other reasons, people were not able to file their returns, and now they have filed their returns and have cleared the backlog, and that is also one of the factors for enhancing the collection beyond 1 lakh rupees. Further, Honorable Minister mentioned that they will remove the anomalies in the rate of this rate of GSTs on inputs. So where inverted duty structure problem is there, they will try to remove this completely. That work is going on, and it will be a good effort from the government side, because there are the cases where raw material having higher rate of GST and the output is at lower rate. So combination of ITC blocking the working capital of the unit. So once the raw material will be at lower rate and the output will be on higher rate or at the same rate, definitely this inverted duty structure problem will not be there. So these are the few basic things she mentioned in the budget. Apart from that, friends, this is one thing which is very I don't feels good, that there is amendment in section 7 of CGST Act, and section 7 mention about the supply, and we all know that GST is purely on supply based tax. So if you are changing supply definition again and again, and that too with retrospective effect, it gives a bad impression. So this time also again, definition of supply has been changed through this section 7, and that too with effect from 1st July 2017. So this time they have added one new clause to section 7 after sub clause A, that is AA clause, which says that if any club or association of person giving any type of service or goods to its members, it will be taxable in the hands of the assessee, in the hands of the recipient. Because earlier there was some case was going on in the case of Calcutta club case. This was the point of litigation, whether member of the club, if getting service from their own club, will be taxable or not. Now through this amendment or this addition to the definition of supply, they have made it clear that if any club or association of person giving service to its members, it will be taxable. Another amendment is done to section 16. Section 16, we all know it relates with the ITC. So if I am buying something, I am eligible to claim ITC on my inputs. And there was a point of litigation or confusion regarding if I have received the goods and I have bill for that, I am eligible to claim ITC. But department was of the view that if your bill is not appeared in GST 2A, you are not eligible for taking ITC, and you have to reverse it and you have to pay interest on that. So litigation was going on, and official, it was not in the law. But now through this amendment under section 16, by adding subclause AA, they have made it clear that if your invoice which you are having in your custody and you have received the goods or the services, but it is not depicted in GST 2A, then definitely the ITC will not be available to you. So this amendment is there. And then another amendment is done in section 35 subsection 5, which is a blow to all our we professionals, that GST audit, which is annual feature under CGST Act by the CMAs or chartered accountants in form of GST 9C has been omitted under this budget. So in this, my view is that because till date GST is not settled and GST is not get matured. So this type of steps can further renew the situation in the economy, because our dealers, what I have feel, it's my personal view. You may differ from that, but what I have observed that the people working or the stakeholders and the dealers or the MSME sector is not fully matured to understand this GST provisions till now. So by having audit under 9 or 9C through professionals would have be a good feature of better, could have given better results. But by having omitting this section will create a lot of confusion in the minds of the stakeholders, and people may not be able to finalize their annual returns as mentioned in section 35 subsection 5. By omitting section 35 subsection 5, they have amended section 44 also. 44 talk about annual returns as per GSTR 9. So in that section, they have itself mentioned that the assessee can file GSTR 9 without having audit from cost accountant or chartered accountant by giving a self-certification to the facts or the figures given in GSTR 9, and also a reconciliation statement which will reconcile the turnover as per GST records and the financial books of accounts. So there is no certification required from chartered accountant or cost accountant, but self-certification will be sufficient for the assessee. So this can be an ease of doing business, but I feel personally that people are not get settled down with the GST as of now, and with the regular changes, frequent changes in the GST will create a lot of confusion in this process. Further, friends, another important amendments brought to the budget or the CGST section 50. Section 50 talks about the interest to be paid on delayed payments of tax or the delayed submission of the returns. So there was a confusion going on, litigation was also going on, that if you have not paid the tax in time, so it is subject to interest. So there was a confusion because of some judgment that interest will be paid on gross tax liability, whereas assessees were claiming that, or the professionals were of the view that interest should be paid on the net liability after adjusting ITC. So a lot of confusion was going on, litigation was also there. So now through this amendment and through this budget, they have made it clear that the interest will be charged on the difference amount paid by cash. So there is no need to pay interest on gross amount of tax liability. So for example, if you are having liability of 100 rupees and you are having ITC of 50 rupees, so now 50 rupees which you have paid in cash, that will be subject to interest under section 50. So this is a good move from the department side. And one more thing which is again a drastic change, or which is not in the favor of assessee, is through amendment through section 129. Section 129 of CGST Act talk about detention, seizure and release of goods in transit. Read this section with rule 138, that is e-way bill. So this amendment says that during transit, when goods are being moved through a truck or lorry or whatever mode it is, and department people or the search team finds that the documents carrying by the driver are not correct, there may be some clerical mistake or there may be some calculation mistake in invoice or challan or e-way bill, then presently the penalty is 100% of the tax. Now this 100% has been done and increased to 200%. So now the point is that if you have any clerical mistake or total mistake or some mismatch between the documents carrying by the truck, the penalty will be 200% of tax amount involved in that. So we have to be more careful when you are releasing the trucks or dispatching the goods or preparing the documents. Another change has been brought in IGST Act section 16. Section 16 of IGST talk about zero rated supplies. Zero rated supply means export of goods. So friends, as of now, the system is that we are having two options. One option is that you pay IGST and export your goods, and when you will file your GSTR 1 and 3B, and once your goods have been exported from the port, the refund will be automatically shifted to your, will be transferred to your accounts automatically. So this is a good system, and working capital of the SECI doesn't affect it. But what I am seeing through this amendment brought to section 16 of IGST Act regarding export of goods, they have made the change in such a way that it says that whenever you are going for export, you need to export without payment of tax. So without payment of tax, when you are exporting the goods, means whatever refund you want, that refund will be of ITC taken by you on your inputs. So for taking this ITC, you need to produce documents to the department. So means this system, in this system, the refund doesn't come automatically. The refund has to be applied, and you have to show the documents, your purchase bills, your certification, your some undertakings to the department, and only then department will release the document refund. So this is a lengthy process, and this will hamper the working capital of the SECI. So I don't think this procedure is the sign of ease of doing business, and it should not be passed this way. And the system which we are already having, means automatic refund against export by payment of IGST, is the better option, and that should be implemented and remains there. But through this amendment, government is moving towards this system which was in excise earlier. So which I don't think is a appreciable step by the government. So these are the basic main amendments done in indirect taxes by this budget. And if you have any specific query, we can discuss upon that. And with this, I really thanks to the Noida management chapter and chapter of Noida chapter, and also the Global Forum and Pankaj ji for giving this opportunity for interacting with you people. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, CMA and Sharma ji, for sharing valuable insights. So, as a token of appreciation,
thanks a lot, sir. Thank you very much.
we are pleased to share your certificate of recognition.
Thank you, ji.
We are really honored with your valuable insights. Friends, as you all are aware of that, the woman perspective plays a very important role in any budget. So whatever we talk about Indian economy and global economy, but at the end of the day, the economy of home and the perspective of any woman is very, very important to read the budget. So just to achieve this objective, we have invited a very elite speaker, Shefali Sengal ji. Shefali Sengal is a founder of Women with Wings with 21 years of industry experience. Women with Wings is a platform which talks about women empowerment, women collaboration, and helping women live their dreams. She is also a certified post, means prevention of sexual harassment consultant. Shefali is also a state president, UP HR Council with Women Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and executive council member of Young Entrepreneurs Network. She runs her charitable trust Bhavishya, which takes initiatives for women and child care. Over to you, Shefali ji, and we invite you to share the woman perspective on this particular budget. Over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. Namaste and good evening, everyone. First of all, thank you so much, Bharatiya Global MSME Forum and Noida Management Association for providing this opportunity. I know, sir, you always come up with the latest topics, and happy to know that the perspective of my co-speakers. Already, the co-speakers have already spoken a lot about the budget, the GDPs, the fund allocation, and everything. So I am extremely delighted to share the insights on the changes declared by the Lady Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, where she has spoken and walked about women in the budget. By proposing such a budget, and that too going paperless, she has proved how women take care of things and accept things from time to time. A lot of stats have already been shared, so I don't think that I should focus on the statistics and all. I believe in picking up the good things in anything. So I'll just focus on the good things about the budget. I was just going through Google and a lot of apps yesterday when the budget was being announced. The Economic Times headline says, budget gives push for women's participation in the workforce. On the other hand, we have heard people saying, budget 2021, does it really aim at women-led development? Uh, as for me, I think it's all about what as an individual we want. So let us see what a common woman wants, what are her needs. So first is she wants ease of work, work as per her convenient time and place so that she can take care of her personal things also. And ease of compliance, hassle-free work. I feel all these points have already been covered in budget of 2021. Also, this budget focuses a lot on hybrid working, gig work culture, which means that we can work as freelancers. When freelancing is prevalent, opportunities for women are more. Our policy is encouraging work from home. That's one aspect which attract more women coming forward and taking up the assignments of their choice. Another important aspect is night shifts. Night shifts will be encouraged with safety measures, which means we can join the industry of our choice. Again, women can come forward, be it a BPO, an IT industry, a manufacturing industry. Women can come forward, the organizations, the government will take the required measures, safety measures to ensure that women are safe and working in a healthy and a positive atmosphere. Startups will have extended a tax holiday. This means more and more women can avail benefit and live their dreams. A lot is already being done under Atmanirbhar Bharat, which we already know. I think this decision is an add-on. Even women from semi-urban rural areas can also come forward, take some trainings and start their work. After all, we women, I believe, have hidden talent. Since our childhood, maximum of us have been taught about either cooking or creativity or our traditional work, which we bring in from our native places. So it's high time, with the ease norms that women live up to their passion. Even in my circle, I know a few homemakers who want to start something on their own, of their own, where there are no, restrictions on the working hours. They can work from home, they can work from their choice of place and the ease of documentation. Uh, Also, one important thing is that the incorporation of company is possible with one member also. So that also gives a boost to the women, sometimes that the cost can be taken part. In case we are not able to do, okay, we'll take a conscious call afterwards, but let us at least start. एक first step तो हमें लेना ही चाहिए अपने dreams को, अपने passions को fulfill करने के लिए. Next important thing I feel is reduced compliance. When we know that we can focus on work and other compliances are not a matter of botheration, it helps us concentrate better. My fellow speaker has also spoken, sir has also spoken a lot about GST norms, and yes, there are pros and cons, but yes, I'm talking about the positive aspects. All the above steps takes us closer to empowering women in the economy and closing gender gaps in the world of work, which are key to achieving the 2030 agenda of sustainable development goals, particularly gender equality, promote full and proactive employment and decent work for all. Inclusive work environment has also been touched upon by our Honorable Finance Minister. So here when I was going through the budget highlights yesterday, a very important aspect I was going through, which was mentioned by Ms. Rituparna Chakrabarti. She is Executive Vice President, Team Lead Services. She says it is definitely a welcome move and is in line with the spirit of providing equal opportunities for women. This means that there is something in store for women. What we need to do is explore and grab the opportunity. As organizations, we have to create that win-win situation where organization and women employees both are at benefit. I would like to draw attention at one more point. Globally, over 2.7 billion of women are legally restricted from having the same choice of jobs as men. Our budget says steps will be taken in the direction where women will work in both the blue collar as well as white collar jobs, provided safety measures are being taken care of by the government and the organizations. I think this will be a huge boost to the economy, as in where many rural women are not able to, do their work, do their job, pick up something because of non-availability of opportunities, or maybe there are a lot of reasons. But now they have a choice to work in a company, in a department, and time of their choice. What more can a lady expect if she is able to support her family, fulfill her dreams, and at the same time take care of her personal things as well? I feel this year's budget is proposed to spend double on healthcare. So a part of this budget should be spent on mental health and emotional wellness. If major changes are going to happen, women are allowed to work at night. I think lot has to be done in order to reduce the repercussions of having more number of women employees. Uh, for this, I propose government should make mandatory for institutions and corporates to do such awareness sessions and should ask for a progress report. That will definitely help us to get that authenticated reports and do actually for women and the society at large. This pandemic job cut has hit women harder than men, leaving 17 million unemployed women in April 2020, and the data has been increasing tremendously. So this was according to the report by Oxfam India. So where the job market is badly hit, and in my the discussion, I just mentioned that we women have a lot of our skill sets which we can definitely look upon. We can build upon something. Uh, the textile industry, I believe, can be one more thing where women can explore. Like I know somebody in Madhya Pradesh, they are doing a lot on promoting handmade sarees. So they are trying to build up and bring the culture back. But here again, a lot of things happen that the people or the entrepreneurs buy from them at a cheap rate and sell it at obnoxiously high prices in the urban areas. So like I propose here, I suggest that like DG Cindy, Kendriya Bhandar organizations are there. So if some price checkpoint can be done so that at least the people, the women who are working in rural, they are not at loss, at least they are able to earn their living properly. Ultimately, they are the bread earners of their for their family. They are the ones who are using their skill sets. So they should be paid properly. I feel this is one of the major point where we can focus, the government can focus, and we as individuals can also put thrust. Now coming to travel and tourism, I think that is one of the industry. Rural tourism can be encouraged. Top of it run by a woman who can avail all the benefits of a startup, enjoy the freebies of being a woman entrepreneur. People are slowly shifting to travel to a nature's place, scenic places. It will be minimum investment, lots of fun, connect with nature, rejuvenate, have local authentic delicacies. I think rural tourism is one thing which we should focus upon, and our government should do more on advertising and branding. Normally people have shifted to going abroad, going to foreign countries, and foreigners come to India to explore our country. So I think that concept, which was launched few years back, Atithi Devo Bhava, that should be promoted vigorously so that this rural tourism can be promoted. And of course, women are always known to be good hosts. So our country is full of delicacies, natural beauty, flora, fauna, everything. So I think a lot can be done on this rural tourism and travel and tourism industry. To sum up, overall, I think every budget has equal goods and bads. It is all about the implementation. Even Kiran Mazumdar Shaw says, beauty lies in the execution, not in talks. The proposed things should come in action. It should not be a 5-year plan. Quick policies, quick decisions, quick executions are the key to a successful economy. And yes, women entering into so many workspaces will definitely help India become a $5 trillion economy very soon. That's all from my side. So I'm open for questions, if any.
Yeah, thank you, Shefali ji, for very, very positive thoughts. So I think that is a power of women, that women always talk about the positive side only. And I think that is even learning. Everyone should, take it forward. I am taking the extreme pleasure to share with you your certificate of recognition.
Thank you so much, sir. It's an all-time pleasure to get connected with you and speaking this platform was wonderful experience for me.
For your valuable insight shared by you.
Thank you.
So now I would invite CMA Swati Chaturvedi ji. She is the chairperson of Noida chapter of Institute of Cost Accountants of India for sharing her concluding remarks. And so that after that, we will put the session on close. Over to CMA Swati Chaturvedi ji.
Thank you, Pankaj sir. It was wonderful being here, and I would like to take the first opportunity. I would like to thank NMA, Bharatiya Global MSME Forum, and the speakers today, CMA Anil Sharma ji, Ankit Amal ji, and Shefali ji, definitely. It was wonderful hearing you. And all the speakers have been so very wonderful, and their presentations were so up to mark that I think everyone who has attended this program today and participated in this program, listened attentively, will be much more attentive and knowledgeable going back, because although we heard the budget yesterday, definitely, we have read about it in the papers today, but the analysis that was given by Sharma ji and the speakers, it was wonderful, sir. I would like to one thing that I noted in your presentation, sir, that it was about the pros and cons. It's not only about what was good or what was bad. What we see on the newspapers and particularly on the televisions, these are very one-sided views that are portrayed to us. Either on one channel we say that everything is very good, on the other side some channels will be giving only the bad sides. But in these presentations, both the sides were given equal importance. Like sir was telling us about the custom duties and the emphasis on the Atmanirbhar and trying to go local, vocal for local, all those things are mentioned, and side by side the setback to the GST audit, and that all things were also discussed. As we can say that compliances, as professionals, we have given very importance and emphasis on compliances. Maybe beyond the name of ease of doing business, they are done away with, but they will certainly realize that compliances are not hampering your business or emphasis, but they are making sure that we are doing business in a proper way. And these all things go a long way in making our business successful. So the compliances should be there, and more people should understand the importance of this. As a professional body, we like to say that particular thing. As for the women perspective, I must say, Pankaj ji, it was a very good idea of yours to invite Shefali ji, because definitely we have been listening to the budget, but what she said was a very wonderful thing. From the startup point, the one-person company, everything we have read and we have understood, but from her perspective, now I realize that yes, it is something which ladies can do, one-person company. So it was really very nice listening to you and giving a different perspective, even to a lady, another lady. I can say that I had this new insight from this particular place. I would like to conclude my remarks with a special thanks to all the attendees, because every program is successful only when there is a wonderful participation, attentive people who are listening to us and giving wonderful remarks on the chat boxes. I have been reading through them. Everyone is full of praises for all the speakers, and it is indeed a very motivating point for us for having these people. Okay, and NMA, I would like to thank NMA for giving this opportunity. Again, we have been doing programs with NMA every year on this budget session. Every year we used to have an offline program at the NMA office, but this time due to pandemic, we were forced to go for online. Although interactions were a little less, as face-to-face we could have met more properly, but the knowledge sharing was, I can say, there was not a single strand that we can say was lesser from the offline or online. The knowledge sharing was particularly very good. And every presentation that both the speakers had given was so wonderful. We have listened to each and every word that they had said, and we are much more enlightened about the direct tax or the indirect tax aspects, plus the cascading effects of the budget that we are going to experience. I'm sure the positive effects will soon come. As we were saying, directly individuals are not much affected by the budget when there are no changes in the direct tax for the individuals or something like that. But as sir was pointed out, whatever impetus is given to the manufacturing sector, to the tourism sector, as in jewelry case, we can say the jewelry sector was going down, emphasis has been given to them. Plus MSMEs, definitely when everything is being promoted for local things, definitely the MSME will improve. And all these things eventually come down to the ultimate consumers, who are, wherever the money is going, it will directly or indirectly come in the hands of the consumers, to us. So it is not that directly, if nothing has been given in the budget to individuals, but when focus has been given to these particular features, if the economy is going to rise eventually, what is economy? What is nation? We, the people, are nation. So if the economy is going to rise, the nation is going to develop, it is we who are going to develop at individual levels. So definitely a very positive budget, focusing on the health as the 6 pillars were being discussed. Health is definitely something very important. As our Prime Minister had said, Jaan hai to Jahan hai. But now we are focused on Jaan bhi, Jahan bhi. Definitely everyone, I'm sure we all have been very safe and healthy in the pandemic. Thankfully, God's grace, everyone is healthy and healthy. And now we will certainly, the economy will strike back and we will get back to whatever we had hoped for in the previous years. So there's nothing going to be a setback to Indian economy by the pandemic, because we all will be promoting it, and definitely everything will come back on the track.
So thank you, CMA Swati Chaturvedi. I think our connection has been lost. Swati ji, are you on? Your audio is not audible.
Probably I lost.
Okay, can we conclude?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Thank you, CMA Swati Chaturvedi ji, for sharing very good insights. And I think by your concluding remarks, there is no need to say anything from my side. So now we are just declaring our session closed. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, all the participants. Thank you, all the speakers, for joining our session today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pankaj ji. Thank you very much. So nice of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.